The Secretary of State's office says there were problems with the new voting machines, but that the big issues mostly happened in the 4 largest counties near Atlanta. As WSAV News 3's Joanne Merrigan reports, voting rights groups say the primary was a mess that needs to be cleaned up before November.
Yesterday was a massive failure.
Andrea Young from the ACLU of Georgia says another election, another scene of people waiting in line for hours.
Voter suppression has the same effect, whether it's incompetence or just intentional, an intentional deprivation of the right to vote.
Young says the ACLU does have concerns about how some larger counties handled this, but says the state played a big role.
But obviously the Secretary of State is who chose to deploy machines across the state, so had an obligation to make sure that people had the training and the resources.
We train the trainers. The counties are in charge of training the poll workers.
Election officials say they did their job.
In almost every case, when our technicians showed up, it was a 2 or 3 minute fix because the poll workers had not learned what exactly to do with this new equipment.
Gabriel Sterling, the statewide voting implementation manager, says it might have been a rough start, but that many places didn't have that many problems. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger put the blame on county officials.
The employees didn't understand the system. So what were they doing for all these months? All of a sudden they wake up and they say, let's have an election on Tuesday?
That comment set off some criticism, mostly from Democrats.
And I have to say that I was particularly disgusted that our Secretary of State refused to take any personal responsibility for a debacle that was clear to anybody watching it.
Georgia places the Secretary of State in charge of elections. That means training, that means giving direction.
At this point, election officials are saying this.
We're going to work hand in hand with all of our counties. We're going to learn from these things.
Voting rights groups say it's about Georgia's reputation and a bigger election in a few months.
This was sort of a rehearsal, for November. And in November, many, many more people will turn out to vote.
Joanne Merrigan, WSAV News 3, on your side.
Georgia's Speaker of the House says they will investigate irregularities in yesterday's primary. The ACLU is weighing its options legally and politically on how to protect voters in the future.